Hello, and welcome to the Monster Painter. This time we explore the grim, dark bestiary of Forbidden Psalm. For those who don't know, Forbidden Psalm is a miniature agnostic fantasy skirmish game set in the grim darkness of the Dying Lands. It's the cousin to the TTRPG Mork-porka. It's simple, fast, fun, and brutal. The game shines because of the imaginative scenarios and the crazy, eccentric monsters that populate the setting. So, Forbidden Psalm has a setting of grim decay. Everything is foul and horrible and deteriorating. The players have found work with the mad wizard Viprex. He sends the warbands on nasty, brutal scenarios of all sorts. The warbands compete to complete the missions and have to face the strange horrors of the Dying Lands. In an order as eccentric as Viprex himself, we start with the least unusual monstrosity in the bestiary. Alright, and we're starting with that easiest of all monsters to source, the ubiquitous skeleton. I don't even know if it could be considered a proper fantasy game, let alone a grim, dark fantasy game, if we didn't have ourselves skeletons. And, skeletons, super easy to find. There's a million skeletons out there, and this is at least one category of monster in this crazy game that is simple and straightforward. I think everything else gets pretty wacky. Now, you also have to remember that some of the skeletons, I think 1 in 4, will be armed with bows. And for that purpose, I like to use these old kind of Games Workshop skeleton archers, because they're great. But I also really love the really old Ral Partha skeleton archer, because that, to me, is fantastic. Yep, skeletons, easy work there. Alright, here is a weird one. I have never heard of this before. It's called a puka. Now, all the art in the book portrays pukas as something like a modern Wendigo, and they are ruthless cannibals whose victims rise after the puka's feast as a new puka. So all that reads as Wendigo for sure. But pukas are described as shape-shifting horrors with an unstable form. Being somewhat of an old-school fellow, playing a somewhat old-school game, I felt like some old-school models would fit the bill. So I dug up some really old, quirky Warhammer bloodletters of Khorne for the job. These weirdos are distorted models and seem to get at my interpretation of what a puka is. Swinging back to the more conventional fantasy monsters, we have the unconventionally named morka-porka, which is simply a giant boar. Okay, it's a giant boar with a twist. If you feed the morka-porka your arm, it will bond with you and you can use it as a mount. Yeesh, what a price. Otherwise, they are pretty normal, ferocious, dangerous wild boars. I am using another old GW Warhammer model for the job. The next monster is quite novel and captures the whimsy of this grim dark setting. It's the mysterious animal cultists. So in this crazy quirky game, we get the animal cultists, and many of these things are up for interpretation, but what I'm confident of is that we are not dealing with human cultists. While humans are animals, these are not the right kind of animals. I believe that the animal cultists are barnyard animals who have thrown off their shackles, their livestock shackles, and freed themselves and are plotting to bring down the world of man through dark rituals in a form of vengeance, for which I use the toy animals from zoo kits, right? They're quite appropriate, and they're cheap and plentiful. And of course, wherever there is a cult, there must be a cult leader. Mr. Bunnykins wants to destroy everything. Okay, that's enough whimsy. It's back to the grim darkness with a grim take on an already grim and gruesome monster. Now, the world is full of all manner of ghouls and zombie models that can fulfill the role just fine, but a disemboweler ghoul is trying to strangle you with its own viscera, entangling you with its guts so you cannot get away. This means to get the flavor just right, I'm going to use models of the living dead that have their intestines hanging out, like this hapless old Malifaux miniature. Now we come to another vaguely described monster, the Great Maw. I was gonna use a Lovecraftian monster that I have called a Gug, but I can't for the life of me find him anywhere. But that's okay, because otherwise the solution to the Great Maw is a pretty simple one. You use your giant worms, which are, not the rarest of models, or possibly a rather sinister-looking Utyug, classic D&D creature with a big mouth and a horrific visage. Yep, the Great Maw. Weird, vague, but easily foiled roll. Now for the cover art king, the flagship monster, a grim dark horror of horrors, the dreaded Corpse Collector! Much trickier than the Great Maw is another somewhat not very totally clearly described monster, but the Corpse Collector, and you can get away with using whatever kind of GW model that you have in your collection that has some spikes on its back with corpses sticking out, and it's a adequate solution. Jeez, that guy's dusty, but there is an even better solution. Oh my goodness. Yep, I went out and bought me a proper Corpse Collector. It's a big old resin 3D printed model, clearly based off the cover art, a resplendent and grim dark image if there ever was one. And what a time to be in the hobby. I paid a mere $40, including shipping, to get this perfect miniature for an obscure and unusual role in a small but vital indie game sent to my doorstep. This is truly the golden age, kids. Enjoy it while it lasts. Now, of course, in the dying lands, nothing is sexy, so I am not using some sweet, sexy siren for my sirens. No, I've got this angry, mean-looking siren here who's gonna bash your brains in and eat the goop that oozes out. He's a Asgard water elemental, and I am told that they are still in production by alternative armies. So if you see this guy and you think you have to have him, well, you can. So the afnack is a Welsh monster described as a hybrid of a beaver, a dragon, and a crocodile, and they're kind of a hard model to find, but I think if you use any kind of aquatic chimera type creature, you'll be able to do it. And my proxy for the afnack is Amut here. She's originally the devourer of evil souls. After they their hearts get weighed by Anubis, and if they are found wanting, she gets to eat them up. And I think she will do the job of the avenging afnack who's angry at a town that despoiled its lake. And yeah, I think this is the best I could do for such a weird monster, and I think it's a pretty good proxy. Once again, we swing away from the obscure folklore to a conventional monster with a whimsical, grimdark twist. Sock-stealing goblins! Now, there are no shortage of goblin models in this world. GW has been making them for almost half a century, along with just about every other producer of fantasy wargaming miniatures, so you shouldn't have any trouble finding something for the job. But I wanted something that kind of really said sock-stealing goblin, and then I realized, wow, the old HeroQuest goblins. Their booties look like they might be socks, and so I thought, hey, why not? And boom! Suddenly I had myself a whole village of sock-stealing goblins. Yep, it's all about the socks. You see, magical powers accumulate in a wizard's socks, and for these little vile creeps, they are an irresistibly tasty treat, and they'll break your bones to get them. So be forewarned when you hear the goblin battle cry, "Fresh socks!" And now for our penultimate monster and the last one in the Forbidden Psalm First Edition, another classic, a blood rage vampire. So this is Forbidden Psalm. We are not dealing with suave, sexy, even vaguely humanoid vampires. No way, buddy, you're out. And we are getting those feral beasts with a lust for blood and murder. Hungry monstrosities like these two GW, I think they're called Vargoyles or Varghasts. Pretty good blood-raged vampires. But my old school heart also has this fellow from Ironwind Metals, an old Ral Partha vampire, and boy do these boys look hangry! Okay. I am aware that there is a second edition of this book, Forbidden Psalm, which is basically the same game, but with more treasure, more scenarios, more spells, more items, and most importantly, more monsters! But they will have to wait for another time. All of them except one. The most dangerous creature in the whole game. The mighty and terrifying cath palug. Alright, the only monster I'm going to cover from the second edition of the book is the cath palug. I think that's how you pronounce it. And it's a giant cat. I think you can get away with a little toy lion cat. She's about the right size, and it'll work. It'll get you by. You're probably better off using some big predatory monster like this Rage Drake, painted up to be a dire dandelion. But he's cat-like and ferocious and suitable for such an intensely dangerous monster. I think the cath palug was inspired by an actual cat getting up on the table and knocking the miniatures off. At any rate, such a weird model, I felt like I needed to come up with the weirdest possible iteration for it. And here we go. And so, my cath palug is a big old 80s Ral Partha TSR official Dungeons & Dragons model of the iconic Displacer Beast. But that was not novel or 80s enough for me. My cath palug needed an outlandishly super 80s color scheme. So I appropriated the colors of that venerable 80s franchise character, Battle Cat, He-Man's ferocious and yet cowardly companion and mount for the cath palug. The result is a truly strange and alien model, worthy of the unstoppable ferocity of the mighty cath palug. Well, there you have it. My weird and wacky Forbidden Psalm Bestiary. Now, I think it's time for a monster fight. Tonight's fight features this twerpy little sock thief, a goblin from the venerable dungeon crawler HeroQuest, versus the foul might of a knife-wielding bird, a farm toy conversion inspired by the Unnamed Goose video game. Who will triumph? Only the old bones know. Ooh, ouch. Well, that looks like it could get messy.
Quack, quack, Carl, better get your socks. honk, 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 honk.
And there you have it. Do not mess with an angry bird.
Oh, hello. I would just like to take a moment to thank my channel members, Mark and Lauren. Your ongoing support is always appreciated. And maybe you would like to join the Monster Painter family. Just hit that join button. And for a couple of dollars a month, you gain early access to Monster Painter videos, a members exclusive monthly monster fight, and digital badges! And, maybe you want to support the Monster Painter, but you want a little something material for your financial contribution. Well, the merch shelf down there offers many wonderful options, including this brand new mug. Look at that. It'll make your coffee taste better. Guaranteed? No, not guaranteed, but I'm sure it'll make your coffee taste better. I'm sure of it.
I am finally going to get this Wildspire project finished and get it published. It's taken forever. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, share the video, and ring the bell! Ring the bell!
You are watching Les the Monster Painter.